back to Francois Picard in Washington. Francois.
Thanks so much, Mark Owen. I'm in the company of historian Caroline Willier, who's been with us throughout this ceremony. Thanks again for being with us. Joe Biden, who's going to make his way now to the tomb of the unknown soldier, important after the death of, in particular, after the death of one of his sons, who was a war veteran himself. And again, after what we've seen the last 4 years, and the first time, if we're going to be rattle off historical facts, a lot of people have been talking about 1869, the last time an outgoing U.S. president refused to attend his successor's inauguration. It's important, though, that those other U.S. presidents are going to be alongside Biden.
That's exactly right. Ever since the 40s, when Truman was sworn in, these events have been televised, and since 1997, at Clinton's second inauguration, they've been broadcast live throughout America and the world. And so the optics of this event and the message of unity becomes especially important. And so because President Trump was chosen not to be here, has chosen not to be here today, instead, the inaugural committee went ahead and invited several of the more recent presidents from both sides of the aisle to appear alongside Biden today in this ceremony. And this is not the wreath-laying ceremony. It's a wonderful event. It's not something that has to happen at an inauguration. It was a choice, and it was a bipartisan choice to show presidents, Republicans and Democrats coming together at this time when we really do need unity.
And when we have, I mean, it is a war cemetery at a time when America seems to be winding down 2 decades of being at war.
That's exactly right. And what's a little bit scary is what we're seeing now is that the threat has come home. And I think what is especially important now that we need to turn to is this war of misinformation that we are in with several countries. And it's really important to understand that that is a war too. It's a war of ideas. And if we don't agree on reality, if we don't agree on facts, then we're in a really dangerous place as a country.
All right, it's been 2.5 hours since Joe Biden was sworn in. We mentioned 1869. In a lot of ways, there's been a lot of firsts, the unprecedented security, the scaled down participation because of COVID, oldest U.S. president ever to be sworn in, first woman of color, first woman. For you, Caroline Willier, what will be the moment from today that you remember?
For me, the fact that today we have been able to be here covering these events and watching them unfold peacefully, that honestly is the most important. It's the peaceful transition of power that has been such a big part of the American democratic experiment. And I was worried up until this morning that despite all the security, that we were still going to see some perhaps protests turn violent. And so I am so glad that, fingers crossed, I don't want to jinx it, but I'm so glad that so far, that at least during the large part of the inauguration ceremony today, that we have really just been focused on the incoming president and everyone coming together to watch him get sworn in.
Caroline Willier, historian, many thanks for that. Ketevan Gorjestani, our Washington correspondent, is with us on the Mall. Ketevan, you heard Caroline talk about, effectively being able to breathe a sigh of relief after all we've seen the last 4 years. And you've covered in the past year, it was a campaign like no other, ahead of an inauguration like no other, what with COVID and